Today we're taking a look at the Vermont and a really good fun game that I had in it the other day. This ship is pretty strong at tier 10. The broadside weight is pretty extreme here, given 12 457mm guns. They're pretty accurate as well. That makes for a very powerful ship. The problem, of course, is that reload. And Vermont is a ship that I have a love-hate relationship with. A lot like other battleships in the game, this one is the most extreme example, I would say, of high highs and low lows. There's really not much of a middle ground when playing most battleships, and Vermont certainly fits that character. This ship is amazing when the shells are landing and you're getting those dev strikes, but having that 40-second reload can be a little bit annoying. Certainly is when you have maybe an aiming bug where your shells go short or dispersion doesn't lock on, and then you have 40 seconds to sit there and watch that broadside cruiser live and farm you out. That has been my experience in the Vermont. It's one or the other, either amazing or not. So it's not like this ship is a give me or just auto recommend that you go grind for. But if you're willing to take those lows with those highs, this can be a very enjoyable battleship to play. I think the biggest thing when it comes to Vermont is understanding patience, and it's something I struggle with a lot in this game, is not just firing on cooldown. You're going to see that a little bit in this game. I should mention, though, that I am playing with BFK, who definitely is a buddy from 07, and is also playing in the Vermont. So we're going to try and play on opposite sides of the map and crossfire this team. This can be a great tactic to run if you have two people to play with. It's very powerful to have two very strong battleships able to create different angles. We always talk about that. If you're running in a div, that's a great way to play the game. And he's the one who actually got me to play this ship again. As you know, probably, I haven't been the biggest fan of this ship thanks to that 40-second reload. And it comes down to patience. I just want that big, devastating hit. That's all I'm looking for. And that's really all the both of us are looking for in this match. We want those huge dev strikes, and the Vermont can deliver. You just have to wait for it. So that's really the biggest thing with the Vermont here. And I think it's going to translate to a lot of other battleships. It's just being patient enough to wait for people to go broadside. Because they do. They forget this ship is here, and they'll go broadside. And that maybe is the crazy strength of this ship as well. It's the concealment. You really do want to use that amazing concealment to sneak up into better positions and surprise people. You're always going to have around 20 seconds of downtime in between your salvos where you're undetected. Of course, spotting the bloom from shooting lasts 20 seconds. We have a 40-second reload. So running brisk is great, allows us to get in and out of positions very easily. This position here is really one where Vermont is one of the only battleships where you can just kind of sit here like this at tier 10, considering its pretty decent armor and the concealment. Oftentimes, if you're in a Montana, that DD there, the Smallland, would be spotting us. Spotted by the carrier right now, of course, but the point still stands. And with Vermont having pretty slow shell velocity, I find you do need to push in with it. It's not just a ship that plays the backline. Maybe is another reason that I haven't been having as much fun in it in the past, is just because I've been playing it a little too passive. The more aggressive you can get, the better these guns are going to perform. Much easier to lead at closer ranges, and of course dispersion will be much better the closer you are as well. And it's not just the concealment and the downtime in between salvos that allows us to play a little bit closer to people. It's this improved heal. This is a huge deal for the Vermont. Having this 40-second heal cooldown, like the Ohio, like the Massachusetts, allows you to play a lot closer to the battle. You will probably be able to get through all of these heals, especially in the Vermont, since we're not getting too aggressive for secondaries like we might in Ohio or Massachusetts. Playing this mid-range role is really powerful considering the amount of healing that you actually do get in the Vermont. And on top of that, you have some pretty good maneuverability. Considering it's a giant tier 10 battleship, the Vermont actually accelerates really well and turns reasonably well too. And this really adds to the tankiness of the Vermont on top of the other benefits we've already talked about. It's really powerful to just totally evade these shells coming in at your ship. The ability to turn in and maybe bounce some shells that otherwise would have hit your broadside is also really, really nice. Maybe throwing off some HE spam at longer ranges so it doesn't hit your superstructure will mean you survive a lot longer in the Vermont. And lastly, notice this is a carrier game, and we've kind of just been hanging out in no man's land. No one really around us on our team. The carrier really hasn't gone after us too much, and that's down to the AA. It's really not going to stop a carrier from killing you if they really want to, but for the most part, it's strong enough to deter a carrier. Assuming that you're playing far enough back that you're not just the obvious easiest target, and in this case, it's pretty far for the Immelman to come get us. He's obviously been much more focused down south, and that allows us to play a lot more open positions, a little more aggressive, and just like that, we find ourselves a broadside Worcester that we are managed to take out, getting us our first kill. We have decided to turn away though. The other big deal about playing Vermont and any of these slower battleships is knowing when to leave. Yes, we want to play close. Yes, we want to get closer and have that easier time aiming, the better accuracy and all that. But you can get overwhelmed pretty quickly. And if you decide too late to run away, that's when this ship will die pretty quickly. It's certainly not the fastest, and that benefit we gain from Brisk really doesn't have any impact when you're on fire and constantly being spotted. Broadside Conqueror, unfortunately no citadels, but still good damage. That's the other thing. A few pens is more than enough to do good damage. But again, with this ship, the 40-second reload, we want those citadel ribbons. That is the best part of this ship. And at this point, we have definitely lost the C side, and B is probably not going to get capped anytime soon either. So we want to go to the south and help our team win that as much as we possibly can. Conqueror and Gearing kind of stuck on one another. Let's just kind of aim in the middle of both and see what happens. It is 12 457s after all. Yep, we got two of them. Not often you see a double strike in a Vermont, unless you're maybe shooting your front turrets at one ship and then your rear turrets at another, but a single salvo like that feels pretty good. And that certainly will help us turn back in. That's really important that I need to start playing a little more aggressive here. This game is quickly getting out of hand. We unfortunately only have 2 heals left, but with 60,000 HP, and if we're able to catch these broadsides, I think we will be able to do at least some damage here. Plymouth looks like he's turning in, trying to get aggressive on that ACAP. Again, this is why you want to spread out your battleships. It forces people to make tough choices on who to angle to. Although, looks like BFK is having a rough time in the south there. Doesn't have a lot of spotting for himself, and the Kudenlia is just peppering him with those airstrikes, and of course the carrier is around. So if I can, I do want to help there. And this is perhaps one of the more challenging parts of playing a ship like the Vermont, is understanding which targets to go after. It's very easy to get distracted by targets that don't necessarily matter quite as much, or to be caught holding your salvo too long. That is the downside of this playstyle that I'm trying to adopt more patience. Well, sometimes you can be too patient. You really should just be shooting your guns. Ideally, we do want to take that Puerto Rico out, and fortunately, our carrier is able to do that. We're in no position to get the caps. Fortunately, though, the points haven't actually spiraled out of control yet, so it's not a huge priority. It really comes down to eliminating enemy ships right now, and the caps are kind of a secondary benefit. However, it is really nice that we've managed to clear off that flank. It allows me to push in without being stuck in a crossfire. Sometimes you're just going to have to do that the way the games go, but it's very nice to not have to push into people shooting you from all sides. We're going to take a look at this Guden, again, trying to help our divmates survive, and there's just a tiny gap here that we can shoot through. We do have to be mindful we're broadside on to a Montana, and there's a Plymouth smoke in front of us. So whenever you see a smoked up Minotaur Plymouth kind of ship, you really just have to go bow in. If you go broadside, they're going to take so much damage out of you in that turn, especially on this HP. It's really just not worth it. So time to just point bow in and hope we can bounce as much as we can. The weakness of those ships, of course, is no HE. So we're going to try and live as much as we can off of that. Again, even turning broadside to this Monty, again, just to try and shoot this Guden, although he is angled to us, meaning he's broadside to our divmate. That is the power of having crossfires, right? And ideally, you would be communicating which targets you should want to be going after, forcing those people to make tough decisions, and hopefully giving broadside to one of you. This Monty, fortunately, doesn't actually do that much damage to us with his front guns, and rear guns not as much either. We don't do too much back to him also, so we both kind of just got unlucky there. Although I suppose I did do around 10,000, which isn't bad. But at these ranges and these angles especially, you can definitely cheek a lot of battleships. It's not just Yamato or Musashi that have this weakness. Most battleships have a bit of a weakness here, where the bow kind of widens to make room for the turrets. It's a really, really good spot to aim for to get Citadel hits at closer ranges. And I aimed pretty well there, I think. Unfortunately, we just don't quite get it again. And we take some hits in return. And maybe that influences the decision-making going forward. We're going to definitely angle in. Fortunately, the Plymouth does move away a little bit, giving us a little room to angle to the Montana. And I'm not sure why he went broadside. This is where maybe I took so much damage that he thought, no, let's not ram. Let's try and make the turn and not give up the ship. I'm not sure what the decision was, but we'll take it. We're certainly not guaranteed to do that much damage into a broadside Montana, but it's pretty nice when we do. That lowered Citadel can be a little hard to hit at these closer ranges. The waves kind of make it an awkward thing to aim for at times, but we do take it. And that's 4 kills for us at this point. There is potentially a win on the table for our team. We do have to just finish the game out with no heals. And we're against a Plymouth, an Ohio, and of course the carrier yet. And that really is the dangerous part, where we take 1 or 2 fires and use our damage control in a slightly unoptimal way, and we can die pretty quickly. As many of you know, these are my favorite types of games. The ones that go right down to the wire, and decision making is what matters at the end of the day. This is where I have the most fun with World of Warships from a tactical perspective in random battles. And that's why I really want Wargaming to change how the matchmaker works, or do some things to adjust maps and game design to prevent blowouts. Because I love these games. These games are the most fun part of ships, where it's just so close, you can't really tell who's going to win. Fortunately, our Nevsky does get a parting salvo, getting that just a flesh wound on the Ohio. That makes our life a lot easier here. Hopefully we can come around this corner, and well, we don't even need to take out the Plymouth. That's what I was thinking. I need to take this Plymouth out and somehow round this corner without taking a ton of damage from both the carrier and the Plymouth. But this way we can focus all of our tension on the carrier, trying to get as good a shot as we can. Immelmann, being a German carrier, makes it a little hard to get citadels on, but taking 27k is a pretty decent salvo that gets us our Confederate and our high caliber. And fortunately for us, our AA is just enough to prevent 2 drops from coming in. This is where we need to consider our damage control. Is 1 fire going to kill us? No, probably not. But we do want to be aware of a potential permanent fire after this one, or maybe even a flood from these torpedoes. We're rushing as quickly as we can to get around this island. I do want to do as much damage to this Immelmann as possible. Don't want to let him get away. And, well, the torps are dropped pretty close to this island. I was hoping maybe one of them would clip a rock, or we may be able to slow down in time. Unfortunately, no. We do end up taking the torp and a flood, so now we use our damage control, because that one probably is going to kill us. Maybe the secondaries as well. And there, maybe I aim a little bit low, a little far back, but unfortunately these shells drop a little short, and he's going to angle to us again. But with carriers, you can overmatch a large portion of their bow. And that's what we're going to try and do. And we managed to get our Kraken. Clutching out the win and feeling pretty good about ourselves, I gotta say. That one was a very, very enjoyable game. I kind of thought it was over, though, once we started pushing in from the north down to the south. Just hoping to get a few exit frags or decent damage, and yet we managed to clutch up a win here. We did even manage 3.3 million potential damage, which is quite a lot. As for the build here, since we're going for as much dev strikes as possible, we of course want to be running our aiming systems upgrade, concealment to get as close as possible. Even running steering gears, I find that extra maneuverability is pretty useful. Taking even range mod, partially because of the range, is somewhat useful some of the time, but it comes down to a weird thing in the game that more range actually gives you slightly better accuracy. It's very, very minor. Some people did some digging a few years ago now into some of the ways the aiming system worked, and they found that more range just was slightly better for accuracy. It's very minor though, so part of me thinks I'd be better off running the turret traverse since the turrets are pretty slow. I'm even running the auxiliary armaments, trying to keep that AA alive as much as we can. It does allow us to sit in the open a little bit more often in those carrier games. And then the build looks like this. Pretty standard tank build. Concealment, of course, really, really powerful here. 12.6 kilometers is just ridiculous for 457 mil guns, especially 12 of them. And then we're wanting Adrenaline Rush, of course, more healing, Brisk even, not even taking Grease the Gears, Brisk. How that allows us to be a little quicker into position and sometimes allows us to retreat a little bit quicker as well. Preventive maintenance is what's allowing us to take the auxiliary armaments on our upgrade slot. I do want to keep these main guns alive, and I'm not switching to HE all that often, so I don't see quite as much benefit there. But there we go. There is the Vermont. And wow, I haven't actually logged on yet. This is the first time seeing it. Newport looks pretty cool, I gotta say. This is my first time logging on for the patch. I like that sunset. It looks nice. But yeah, there we go. Vermont. If you guys are interested, I do have a second YouTube channel. I'll probably be posting some more games there that are just straight uploads from the Twitch stream, which you can also check out. And actually, the div mate I was playing with, BFK, also streams every once in a while, and certainly can enjoy some Vermont dev strikes over there too. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and have a great rest of your day.